Landing a man on the moon is one of the greatest accomplishments in history. Without JFK, this specific space mission might not have been possible. JFK made this possible through his "We Choose to Go to the Moon" speech, where he persuaded American people to support the Apollo program through his positive energy and convincing words. Throughout the speech, JFK tells people how sending a man to the moon will be challenging, but it's worth it. He explains why this needs to happen and why he needs support in order to make it happen. JFK, whose real name is John Fitzgerald Kennedy, was the president in 1961 to 1963 and was assassinated in 1963 during his presidency. His "We Choose to Go to the Moon" speech took place at Rice University in Houston, Texas on September 12th of 1962.
But I do say that space can be explored and mastered without feeding the fires of war, without repeating the mistakes that man has made in extending his writ around this globe of ours. There is no strife, no prejudice, no national conflict in outer space as yet. Its methods are hostile to us all. Its conquest deserves the best of all mankind, and its opportunity for peaceful cooperation may never come again. But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too. It is for these reasons that I regard the decision last year to shift our efforts in space from low to high gear as among the most important decisions that will be made during my incumbency in the office of the presidency. But I do say that space can be explored and
The purpose of his speech was to persuade the American people to support the Apollo program. He thought if he could persuade them to support it, then he could build up funds in order to fund the space program and make this happen. His speech was given 58 years ago, and since the first mission, 6 more missions happened in just 3 years after the first one, making it 7 missions in 3 years, which is a huge. The significance from long ago and today remains sort of the same because today we're still exploring things and figuring out new things all the time. It will endure because we were the first to land a man on the moon, and future generations will be taught about this moment, and it will never be forgotten. Space is also still being explored today. My speaker uses ethos, pathos, and logos while giving his speech. For ethos, he addresses the governor, congressmen, senators, guests, and listeners, as well as saying he's delighted to be here. He appears friendly while getting attention of the audience, putting trust into the audience. JFK is also the president during this time, which means he holds knowledge and gives the audience hope and respect. As well as ethos, my speaker uses pathos. He uses words like hazards, hostile, and peace, which are emotional words by themselves. He tells people rights need to be won for the progress of all people, putting more emotion into the audience, making people want to support the program, because who wouldn't want progress for themselves? Lastly, my speaker uses logos. He says $5,400,000,000 are used a year in space funds, as well as new companies and tens of thousands of new jobs were built because of this. He also says space can't work on its own and it needs people. People see logical reasons to support this because of these things he says. As well as ethos, pathos, and logos, my speaker uses alliteration, metaphors, and climax in order to persuade his audience. For alliteration, he says, despite that, the vast stretches of the unknown, the unanswered, and the unfinished, still far outstrip our collective comprehension. Unknown, unanswered, unfinished, and collective comprehension is where alliteration comes into play. For his metaphor, he says, and I quote, "We set sail on this new sea because there is new knowledge to be gained and new rights to be won, and they must be won for the progress of all people." Although no one's actually setting sail on sea, he compares the sea to space. And for climax, he says, "Well, space is there, and we're going to climb it, and the moon and planets are there, and new hopes for knowledge and peace are there. And therefore, as we set sail, we ask God's blessing on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked." As he speaks, he continuously builds up importance through his words. All in all, JFK is a talented speaker showing friendliness, control, and excitement through his words. His communication about why we should go to the moon pays off through his persuasion techniques, in turn benefiting the entire country and creating happy people in an accomplished environment. Thank you for listening to my speech.